book lovers, it is G-Swizz here, and I'm here today to talk about some cozy paranormal reads that I would recommend. If you didn't know, this is a 7 on Sunday topic, and I am the host of 7 on Sunday. I will link the Goodreads page down in the description where you can check it out and you can participate in a topic in the future, or you can suggest a topic. And the October 7 on Sunday topics are pretty much based on Halloween and cozy season. Here in Australia, it is spring. However, I do like reading cozy things during this time of year, and I also do like to try out some spooky stuff I would never usually try. I won't be talking about the super spooky stuff today, as this week's 7 on Sunday topic is all about the cozy paranormal reads, which is pretty funny considering that paranormal reads are usually meant to be spooky. However, recently there has been a rise in cozy paranormal fiction, and I just so happen to like that subgenre. So I decided that I wanted to put a recommendations list together, and next week as this video goes up, I would like to talk about the cozy paranormal reads that I have on my TBR that I would like to read. I guess without further ado, let's get straight into my favorite cozy paranormal reads that I would recommend, and I'll go into reasons why I recommend them. So first off, I would like to recommend Practical Magic if no one has read it yet. And I would specifically like to recommend Practical Magic to those who are like me, they haven't seen the movie yet, and didn't really know what Practical Magic was about before reading it. I went into this book not really knowing anything, and I ended up getting absolutely surprised. I could totally tell while reading Practical Magic that it inspired so many domestic witch stories out there right now in romance fiction, because it just felt like that. It had all those vibes, but unlike a lot of cozy paranormal fiction romances, this book isn't mostly sunshine and rainbows. It very much deals with loss and family complications, and it was hard to read at times. Like, I teared up a few times while reading Practical Magic because I honestly couldn't imagine what it would be like to go through what some of the characters went through in the story. However, I also found Practical Magic to be a very healing story. Therefore, I would consider it to be a cozy paranormal story, and I would absolutely recommend it to those who are wanting to try something new. Practical Magic was something I picked up for a Pop Sugar reading challenge prompt, and that was to read a book that came out the year that I was born, and I was absolutely blown away by the story. I had to purchase the physical copy because I listened to it on audiobook, and I am going to read the rest of the series because this book just touched me. Definitely recommend it for a cold or rainy day. It was just very fun, it was very whimsical, and I can't wait to read the rest of the series. And the next cozy paranormal recommendation I have is Not the Witchy Wed by April Asher. I picked this up because I saw the cover, I was like, oh yep, that has to be mine. But Not the Witchy Wed is the first book in the Supernatural Singles series, and in this book we follow a romance between a witch and a werewolf. This was just really fun, and I don't really have too many negative things to say about it. I did want to learn more about this world throughout the story, but that being said, there are two other books, at least two other books in this series, so I am looking forward to reading those eventually. But I just ended up enjoying this one. I found this to be absolutely cute, and I would recommend it to those who do like paranormal werewolf romances but aren't really wanting to get deep into the lore of a world. I do love the Zodiac Wolves as a comfort series, but if I just wanted to dial it down a little bit and not get too much into the politics, even though there are some politics in this book, if I'm just wanting something a little bit more simple, I will go to a story like Not the Witchy Wed. So I would recommend this one to those who are wanting something that's not too deep and isn't trying to build a world too much, but it's just trying to be a good time and has a romantic plot. And speaking of simple and cozy stories, I also have to recommend What the Hex by Alexis Daria. This is actually a novella. How long does this novella go for? With acknowledgements, this copy is like 115 pages, but if I was to go to the end of the story, 111 pages. It is a very short story, and I believe that it initially was published as an Audible original story and then went into print form. I ended up purchasing this for $6 from Amazon, and that was a steal because I love this cover, and this story was absolutely cute. So if you're wanting something that is not too long but is just cozy, it can get you through a readathon, or if you just want to feel productive and finish something, then this will help you. But it is also just a really fun, cutesy story about two characters who are trying to stop a demon from continuing to possess the groom at this wedding. They spark up a romance, and I do wish that it was expanded upon. However, I do appreciate the short and sweet story I got out of this novella, and I can't wait to read more from Alexis Daria as a result. I would highly recommend this one if you're wanting something that is cozy, but short and sweet, and has a little bit of magic to it. And this next cozy paranormal romance I recently read, and I found it to be quite a delight, because unlike some of the cozy paranormal romances I've mentioned, like What the Hex and Not the Witchy Wed, I feel like this one had a bit more of a fascinating plot that you could actually argue to be a regular plot without any paranormal elements. However, I do very much appreciate how the paranormal elements were woven into the story. And that, my friends, is Hex Appeal by Kate Johnson. I really loved this story, and I read it in the lead up to this video to see like whether or not I would recommend this book, and yes, I would definitely recommend Hex Appeal. It's a very fascinating story where the female protagonist is living in a house rent-free because that's just her house. That's where her family's always been, that's where she's always been. So she just lives in this house, and she doesn't know that they're not the landlords. This random guy out of nowhere comes to the house and says, hey, I inherit this land, so I'm technically the landlord, and you need to pay me rent. She tries to get out of it. It's just really funny, and hijinks ensue. Things just get really funny between these two, but they start learning more and more about this guy's history, and it's fascinating. And additionally, Hex Appeal is an age gap romance as well, as the protagonist, the witch, has been alive for a while. However, she hasn't had a partner in a while, and they just come together. They're just so cute. I really loved the story. I loved thinking about it. I found it to be absolutely comforting, but also interesting. At times, we did switch places, meaning that at some point in time, these guys went through time travel, and it was just wild, because I just went into this story expecting just a cutesy romance, but I would say that this is a cozy paranormal story that kind of goes a little bit deeper in terms of the lore side of things. I enjoyed Hex Appeal, and I would recommend the story to those who are wanting a good adventure. I went into this just for a cute romance, but I got a good adventure out of it, and I do appreciate that. And the next cozy paranormal book recommendation that I have on this list today, I think some of you guys are expecting me to mention, and that, my friends, is the Fix It Witches series by Anne Aguirre. I really like this series, and I do have to admit, Witch Please, the first book, is not my favorite book in the series. I almost gave up on this book series. Like, I found this first book to be cute, but I did not find it to be great. I do find these two characters to be adorable, but there was just like one unresolved plot line that I was just hoping would be resolved, and it did get resolved, but just after the events of the third book. But oh my goodness, I love how this series progressed. I specifically like Boss Witch. That just so happens to be my favorite book in the series, and I definitely think that's because we are following a witch and a witch hunter. I love the hate to love dynamic. I think you'll see that with another recommendation on this list as well later down the line, maybe a couple of them actually. The hate to love trope is like one of my favorites, but I did enjoy Witch Please, and if anything, I do think that Practical Magic very much inspired Witch Please and the Fix It Witches series, because the family dynamic in the Fix It Witches series very much reminds me of the family dynamic that we see in Practical Magic, and I personally appreciate that. That's why I was drawn to Practical Magic, and I think that's kind of why I started reading cozy paranormal romance, because I just like those wholesome vibes. And that essentially is what made me appreciate the Fix It Witches series and made me want to continue on. And I'm really happy that I did continue on, because I got a really good time out of the series. And I would definitely recommend the Fix It Witches series if you were just wanting some chill paranormal romance vibes. I mean, unlike the previous book I mentioned, Hex Appeal, these characters don't really go on too many adventures. It's not as adventurous, but it's definitely cozy. It's definitely just chill vibes. But this next cozy paranormal romance recommendation kind of hits harder than the other books I've mentioned on this list so far, and that, my friends, is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. And in my personal opinion, I don't think many people would expect The Dead Romantics to be on a cozy paranormal romance list like this, but I think that it definitely deserves a spot on one of these lists, because it is very much a cozy paranormal romance. I was scared going into this story that I would just be devastated, because oh my goodness, the synopsis sounds so devastating. In The Dead Romantics, we are following a protagonist who can see ghosts, and someone she made friends with is now a ghost, and it is devastating for her, it really is. And she is also coming to terms with a loss in her family, and sorry, Okay, as some of you guys know from the community tab, I lost someone myself. So talking about this is just a little bit sensitive at the moment. But I think I want to reread this book as well, I think at this time, because I myself am learning how to grieve. I have never really had a big loss until only recently that I've truly like comprehended. I mean, I've lost people previously, but like at very young stages of my life where I couldn't fully comprehend it or couldn't really fully grieve. But at this time, yeah, talking about this is like rough. But this story was heart-wrenching and heartbreaking, but I also found elements of it to be really cozy. And I think if I was to go back into the story, I would find it to be even more cozy. It's definitely one that I did not expect the direction of, but I think at the end of the day, I finished this book happier than I expected to be. And I would definitely recommend this book to those who are just wanting a very heartwarming story. I think I need this book right now. I think that I would find this to be really comforting. I put this on this list before anything happened in my personal life, so I was gonna recommend this book anyway. I would totally recommend this book to those who are just wanting a good, cozy paranormal story that doesn't necessarily involve witches. I have mentioned a few that do involve witches, and that is simply because witches are dominating the cozy paranormal romance subgenre. So I honestly think that more authors should do the Ashley Poston thing by coming up with more paranormal romance ideas. And the next cozy paranormal book that I would highly recommend is actually a book I read this time last year, and that, my friends, is The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon. As I'm filming this video right now, I'm actually currently reading Belladonna, which is not necessarily a cozy paranormal romance. I mean, that right there is a little bit more dark. But as I've been reading Belladonna, I could not help but think that The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy kind of reminds me of a much cozier version of Belladonna, because it's not as bleak. I mean, it deals with the subject of death and undertaking, which, yeah, sounds bleak. But the topic is dealt with very well in The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy. We are essentially following two characters and their hate-to-love dynamic. Mercy works for her family undertaking company, and Heart is tasked as a patroller, and they definitely misunderstand each other at the very beginning of the story. They cannot stand each other, but as the story proceeds, they just fall for each other, and it's so cute. It's adorable. It definitely made me cry because it does deal with very heavy subject matters, and I think this is definitely one of those stories I could revisit at this time because, as I previously mentioned, I'm currently grieving, and I think this just might be one of those light stories for me to kind of process that as well. I do think that some things are unfair. I do think that losing people early is unfair, and I can totally understand why Heart and Mercy have that conflict with each other. Heart is definitely bitter against Mercy because of where she works, but she's the most lovely person. And that's where the morally grey side of death comes in, because it very much reminds me of Belladonna. I'm currently reading Belladonna, and like, you want to hate death as a character, but also you can't help but understand him because he has no choice in what he does. That's kind of how I feel about The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy. It's kind of a similar situation where these two characters just find each other and they finally find common ground, but it's done in a much more cozy way in The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy. So I actually would recommend, if you like Belladonna and if you appreciated the concept of grim reaping in Belladonna, but you're just wanting something that's much lighter, The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy, I'd say, is for you. I don't know, that's the best way I can describe it at the point of filming this video because I'm currently reading Belladonna. But if you're just wanting a good, fun, paranormal romance time, then yes, this is that too. And the second cozy paranormal book that I definitely have to recommend today, I feel like started it all for me. I read The Hex by Erin Sterling and absolutely fell in love with the subgenre. I love the story so much. We are essentially following a character who goes through some sort of breakup or one-night stand with some guy and she kind of hexes him, and then years later he comes back to haunt her and she realizes, oh dang it, I kind of messed up there. This is just a very funny story. I really enjoyed the Hex. I have not yet read The Kiss Curse. That is definitely on my cozy paranormal TBR, but the Hex I found to be absolutely funny, enjoyable, cozy, perfect for the time, and I definitely want to reread this book, 100%. It's definitely one of my favorite cozy paranormal reads, and I still think about it to this day, and just how cute this romance was. It also wasn't too long. It's literally 308 pages. Wow, it is such a short short book. It's a quick read, but I very much enjoyed this one. And if you like Rachel Hawkins writing, then you're in for a treat, because Erin Sterling is actually a pseudonym for Rachel Hawkins, but I believe Erin Sterling is going to focus in on more romance novels, and I'm not too sure if they're going to be specifically paranormal romance novels, but what I do know is that if they are, then I will be reading all of them, because I really loved the X-Hex, and this is one I definitely recommend if you're wanting a good witchy read that kind of reminds you of Practical Magic or Bewitched. And the final cozy paranormal read I have to recommend today is probably my favorite out of this bunch, or at least my favorite out of the witchy bunch. I still don't know where I stand with The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy and with The Dead Romantics. It's just really difficult to compare those ones to this story, because this one's a witchy story, but oh my goodness, I really enjoyed Go Hex Yourself by Jessica Clare. And I very much do find Go Hex Yourself to be very interesting, because unlike the other witchy books I've recommended on this list, this story actually follows a love interest who is a warlock, and the female protagonist knows absolutely nothing about magic, but she gets hired to do a job of being a familiar, and it pays very well, and so she's staying around. However, she thinks that the person she's working for, who is Ben's auntie, she thinks that she's delusional, and additionally she thinks that Ben is adding to that delusion, therefore they are just an unhealthy family, and oh my goodness, she thinks that everyone is Delulu, but no, not everyone is Delulu. She just doesn't know anything. But what I also love about this book is that this is a slow burn hate to love dynamic, because Ben doesn't want her around. Ben honestly just doesn't want someone who is inexperienced to be his auntie's familiar. He's just like, no, like, she's not cut out to be here. But he secretly admires her, and it's absolutely cute. I really just love this story. I just found it to be absolutely funny, and it made me want to watch Golden Girls, because there were so many Golden Girls references in this book that it just made me really want to actually watch Golden Girls. Even though I haven't seen it, I've seen snippets of it, and I kind of know what the fans are referring to when they're referring to people as certain characters. That's what they do in this book, which I found to be really funny. I just really enjoyed this book, and I really liked the spice in it as well. I just had a very fun time with this one specifically, and I think out of all the cozy paranormal books on this recommendations list, this one is probably my favorite. And honestly, who knows if that is because that I only just finished it, but one thing's for sure, this one holds a very special place in my heart, and I will definitely be revisiting Go Hex Yourself for the days to come. And if you are interested in listening to audiobooks, Andrew Aiden voices Ben, and he does a very good job with it. So I would definitely recommend the audiobook if you have the chance to grab the audiobook, because I swear Andrew Aiden's voice is absolutely perfect. If you've listened to the Bromance Book Club audiobooks, you'd know what I'm talking about. So I guess that's gonna be it for this video today, book lovers. If you happen to stay to the end of the video, leave me the purple heart emoji, because a lot of the books that I showed off today just so happen to be purple, and also purple is a very cozy color in my personal opinion, but like a cozy paranormal color. I don't know, maybe I like purple because it's dark but pretty at the same time. And if you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet already. Join the amazing community of book lovers. And also I have social medias, MattGSwizzleBooks on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm also Goodreads. That's www.goodreads.com/gswizzle. And finally, I'm at TikTok, MattGSwizzle on TikTok, if you want to follow me there for some bookish content. I love you, book lovers, and I will see you later.
Started out with half and I flipped it in a double. Started out with half and I flipped it in a double.